finding God in unusual places. As we think about finding God in unlikely places, we may well begin with a familiar hymn, "Nearer, My God, to Thee." Despite its popularity, many of us just don't live up to it. It says, "Though like a wanderer, the sun goes down, darkness is all over me, my rest a stone." Doesn't feel quite like a likely place to feel nearer to God. "So by my woes to be," the hymn writer went on to say, "Nearer, my God, to Thee." Now this is not easy. We naturally find God in life's wonderful, lovely experiences, praising God from whom all blessings flow. That is where we find Him, in our blessings. But when darkness and disaster comes, we commonly cry, "Where is God?" One Englishman said this, I don't know what I believe. I don't believe in all of this God stuff. I have been in the world 2 ways. I've been unemployed. I've been diagnosed with cancer. And now I'm waiting for some nuclear bomb to fall, an earthquake to happen, and you're telling me about Jesus. How do you want me to feel? This text says that the kind of person who in difficult situations does not lose God but finds Him. Let me bring up the wilderness of the Sinai some 32 centuries ago, where Moses, facing a desperate situation, heard the divine voice say, "The place where you are standing is holy ground." And into the wilderness, Moses takes off and he flees, and he is a refugee from Egypt. And in his anger, he had killed an Egyptian taskmaster who was beating an Israelite, and compelled to flee, he escaped into the desert just to lose himself. Whether one thinks of the public evils of his time under Pharaoh's tyranny, or the slavery of his people in Egypt, or his own personal fall from being the son of Pharaoh's daughter to facing a life on a sheep range, he was in an uncompromising place. The arresting message that God had just given him that says, "You're standing on holy ground." Now, far from being 32 centuries ago, that scene really is here right now. We find God in life's blessed, lovely things. But sooner or later, all of us are going to come to that place where if we are to find God at all, we got to find Him in the wilderness. We admire people who do that. It was Helen Keller who says about her blindness and her deafness, "I thank God for my handicaps, for through them I have found myself, my work, and my God." I can find the divine in the Ninth Symphony, or in the sunsets when the sun rocking and just setting over a beautiful beach, an ocean. We can find God like that. We can find Him like Helen Keller found, or like Moses. How can we find what he found? Perhaps he found something to be angry at. Perhaps he was upset that he was once in a palace and now in a wilderness. Perhaps his maturity was not there and he was simply angry. We can identify with this. He must have fought against it. Disturbing indignation against something intolerably wrong, the slavery of his people. The more he grew up, though, however, we know that anger continued until one day, seeing a Hebrew slave, he incensed that he had to take that life. That was foolish. That did no good. But at least for Moses, he had moved to another moment. He was angry at something invariably wrong. That was the beginning of the real Moses. His anger it was inside of him, but it yet had to come out. And said Martin Luther some centuries afterwards, when I'm angry, it's when I pray better. William Ellery Channing, the greatest New England Unitarian minister, said, "Ordinarily I weigh 120 pounds, but when I'm mad, I weigh a ton." Anger is not ordinarily presented as a Christian virtue, but remember our Lord, of whom in our earliest gospel says that when he saw a deed of mercy being held up by a ceremonial triviality, he looked around at them with anger. And when he saw little children being roughly brushed aside, he was moved with indignation. And Paul did right in the 13th chapter of 1 Corinthians on love when he said, "Be ye angry, but sin not." This is to say, you have to control it. You have to harness it for good. But still, in the face of some evil, you are not a Christian if you're not angry. As a matter of historic fact, some of the most memorable encounters with God in history have been just like that. A Moses in the desert, Isaiah in Babylon with exiled people, Job who said, "I have heard thee by the hearing of the ear, but now I see thee." When you look in the Old Testament, you can see the crucifixion is not a lovely sight. Casually looking on, would you have thought that God was there on a cross? It is no accident that I tell you that men and women find in tragic situations some of the most profound insights into the divine. It's not the soft occasions that bring out the deepest in us. Rather, in our formidable hours when loyalty to the right means the risk of everything, it means that wrong may be on a scaffold, but right is always on the throne. That's why Jesus said, "Not my will, but thy will be done." When Luther writes, "A mighty fortress is our God," when he is risking his own life, when Sir Thomas More says, "I die the king's good servant, but God's first is on the scaffold," he knows that Christ is forever on the throne. I don't know where truth hits you, but for me, I bear my own witness. My deepest faith in God springs not so much from a Galilee where God clothed the illness that Solomon, all of his own glory was arrayed. But it's in my times when rain descends and floods come and winds blow. It's in that time that I find God. You know that the familiar argument that the world is such a mess, that there's evil all around us. There's no reason to believe in God. The earth and its evil may be a great mystery, but I will tell you today that the souls who found God in darkness, they are in great company. Why is it that some of life's most revealing insights came to us not from life's loveliness, but from life's difficulties? It's like those of us when we were children who would say, "Why is it that all the vitamins have to be in spinach? Why can't they just be in ice cream? Why is it that God must be in some of the most unlikely places? In our depths, in our storms, in our wilderness." Perhaps it is because there is where God gets our attention, our full attention. And we know that he's not just simply in the usual places when we are still. And we know that he is God. We can find him even in unusual places.